This podcast is not safe for work and will feature movie spoilers. It will feature scenes described of a graphic nature. It will contain language which most listeners may find offensive. Welcome to the podcast Under the Stairs. Hi everyone and welcome to the podcast Under the Stairs. I'm your host Duncan. Welcome to the show. Up on this episode we conclude our 4-part series counting down my top 20 horror movies of 2024. This episode will cover movies 5 through 1. That's right, if you follow our YouTube channel, you are subscribed to any of our podcast feeds on any of the podcast catchers out there. The previous 3 episodes to this have done the countdown 20 through 16, 15 through 11 and 10 through 6, arriving inevitably where we always do with the top 5. So far, you may have seen some movies you did not expect to score as low. You may have seen some movies that you think have scored ridiculously high, or maybe some of those titles that you were expecting have not appeared yet. Well, they may appear in this final 5. They may also not appear in this final 5, and as always I encourage healthy debate. So in the comment section below, if you're on YouTube or checking us out anywhere that allows you comments, please make comments. Let me know, have I missed anything from this 20 that you think I have not seen that would be worth checking out that was released in 2024, or have I scored some of these movies, in your humble opinion, higher than you would have had on your list, or lower? Let's be fair, it could go either way. So yeah, this is the very final installment. I know, kind of sad. Kind of enjoyed doing this. I love counting down the top 20, even if I personally feel, and I mentioned this in a few videos already, that 2024 was a mediocre year for horror overall. That does not mean that it has not been worthwhile checking out the multitude of 2024 releases I did to inevitably end with this top 5. We will be kicking off in earnest after this particular episode is launched back into some semblance of regular scheduled content. The next episode after this will be a review of Steven Soderbergh's Presence, which I checked out last week, and then I believe early next week it will be a review of Companion, which just saw its release in the UK Friday past, I think. So myself and the Baz are going to go and check that out at the cinema next week. So expect the full review as well there. So without any further ado, let's get into it, shall we? We have 5 movies to discuss. These were my 5 favourite horror movies of 2024. And without any further ado, let's start at title number 5. At number 5, I Saw the TV Glow. This is written and directed by Jane Schonenbrun. The movie synopsis as listed on IMDb is: a teenager just trying to make it through life in the suburbs is introduced by a classmate to a mysterious late-night TV show. So, at number 5, surprising no one, A24's I Saw the TV Glow. Now, I've already done a kind of more fuller review of this movie at some point last year. I want to say it's in the last couple of months I reviewed the title. I saw at the cinema. I went with my good buddy Scott from Scott and Liam vs Evil and Jaws is Shite and another regrettable outburst. We went to the GFT in Glasgow to check this movie out, and I got the A24 Blu-ray for my Christmas. That's how much I really loved this movie, and I would also say in any other year there is a chance that this could have possibly been top of my list. I have held back and put in at number 5, and you will see when we get through some of the other titles. Yes, A24 will still be represented, don't worry, but there's some other titles that I feel are worthy of elevation, maybe above this one. I would say that this one resonated really well with me because of how much Jane manages to capture what my life was like in the 90s. Now, I want to kind of preface this by saying the movie's content itself, I was going to say is subjective. It's not really subjective. It deals with like kind of higher concepts of kind of transgenderism. I would say sexuality. I would say geek culture and fitting in, alternative lifestyles. It kind of covers those things, but at its core, it's kind of fundamentally, when you remove those higher concepts out, about kind of fringe culture and how if you are into something so passionately and so deeply to the point as a teenager it inflicts or affects your life, how alienating that can be in a world that exists before the internet. What I mean by that is when I grew up in the 90s, I was very much into horror movies, which a lot of people my age were not. I was into metal music, which none of my friends listened to. And I was borderline obsessed with bizarre TV shows, which have now found mass cult appeal. And were probably huge in America, but maybe not in the circle of friends in the moderately deprived area that I grew up in. So things like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, TV shows like Lex. I was into things like Babylon 5, was a big Trekkie. And yeah, those were things that were seen as kind of geek culture. And this movie kind of plays and toys with those ideas in a really interesting way, whilst at its core bringing out a real strong kind of alienating and at times horror element, which is really disturbing. What I love about this is Jane's previous movie is We're All Going to the World's Fair, which I also thought kind of handled a lot of the similar subject matter, but in a kind of set after the invention of the internet, and thus kind of also talking about how alienating the internet can be. The idea of kind of chat rooms and online gaming and whatnot, kind of almost forcing you to not have like proper human contact and live out a kind of almost fantasy life online, can be just as alienating as it can be having lots of friends but not necessarily being able to discuss with them with any degree of passion or interest in the things that are important to you, even if those are pop culture and hobbies. I found the movie underpinned with great scores. The soundtrack, both soundtracks, the Alex G original score and the kind of companion soundtrack to this are both top notch, and I play the actual soundtrack to this all the time. It was in my top 5 albums of last year because I think the mix of musicians and content and concepts and the way they're actually played throughout the movie is phenomenal. I think the cinematography is just jaw-droppingly good, as well as the dialogue and performances. So to me, it is a great movie. And yes, it has a weird subjective ending, but it's an A24 horror movie, and if you didn't know that before you went in, then I don't know what to do here. Best use of Fred Durst in a movie? Maybe not, but I thought his performance was very creepy, great, and at one point kind of heart-wrenching. Just a small glimpse. I Saw the TV Glow is an incredible movie. It's one that I've seen about 5 or 6 times last year. I've still to crack the seal on the Blu-ray that I got for Christmas, but it's inevitable that that'll be happening at some point very soon. And yeah, very much like the TV shows I grew up watching, I see that world and I kind of want to be part of it too. So yeah, at number 5 for me was I Saw the TV Glow. Let's check out at number 4. At number 4 is Exhuma. This one is written and directed by Jang Jae-hyun, and the synopsis as listed on IMDb is: the process of excavating an ominous grave unleashes dreadful consequences buried underneath. At number 4, Exhuma. This one is a South Korean movie, and one that I thought was chef's kiss good. This one kind of captures the long lineage of South Korean horror movies. Or just South Korean movies, just in general, are kind of badass. But this one, to me, was the one that I wasn't expecting huge amounts from, because all I heard was the title and the loose concept. which I kind of thought sounded a little bit dumb, to be honest. And then I sat watching it and realised that I had totally misplaced my opinions on this one right at the very, very, very start. I love South Korean horror movies. I love South Korean cinema. South Korean dramas in particular are usually kind of amazing. And their horror movies have a high pedigree. I also do think at times they can suffer from, and it's a slight that affects quite a few of them, from ideas that are too grand for the cinema itself. When they nail it probably better than any other territory in the world. But at times you can get bogged down in kind of needless detail to get to something that is like wonderfully amazing at the end. Like movies to me like The Wailing are just like some of the best you will see, but that pedigree has went back through time as well. A Tale of Two Sisters, movies like that are just like incredible. Exhuma plays with the idea of exorcism, but exorcism done on exhumed bodies, which is a concept I've never come across before. A geo-exorcist, I think, is what, and the fact that geo's in the title and that might be related somewhere, and the further stretches to what I do for a living, and that is all you will find out about that. But the idea and the concept of this geo-exorcist, being someone that, finds these kind of cursed remains to perform exorcisms post-death to remove curses that have been passed down by generation, is a really, really, really cool idea, and could be very twee and almost kind of silly in lesser hands. The execution in this one is surprisingly dark, right from the off. And what I loved about it is that the movie kind of plays out over two parts. So you get like the kind of setup and then the kind of the aftermath. In the case of the aftermath of this one, that is half the movie, and the setup is half the movie. So you kind of get the story told again with the repercussions of what has happened in the first half. It leans very much into strong senses of kind of cultural grudges between Asian nations, that being Korea and Japan, at its core, which is really, really, really well done. I love the ghost in this one. The actual, like I can't give away details because this one's not been widely seen, but the real reveal of who the ghost is and what it is just brilliant, and the way it's handled is absolutely awesome. It does run a bit longer. It's probably the longest horror movie on this list of all the movies that I will have done from my 20, but it is worth your while. And if you enjoy Asian horror cinema, specifically South Korean horror, then this one is going to resonate with you. You're going to have a great time with it. It's well shot, very well acted. The CGI probably won't hold up in a couple of years' time. It was already kind of looking not cheap, but a little bit ropey here, but it's not enough to dissuade you from enjoying the journey throughout this movie. I think it's really, really, really well put together, and it's great to see that South Korea is still just like swinging like with ease and connecting with their subject matter in the movies and the way that they are. This many years on from when I was first introduced to their stuff via Tartan Asia Extreme way back in the early 2000s. They're still nailing it in the best possible way. So Exhuma was my number 4. Please go and check it out. It's probably, of all the movies I will mention on this list, is probably the one you're likely not to have seen, unless you are someone that genuinely goes out your way to check foreign cinema. So Exhuma, number 4, and let's check out what made number 3. At number 3 is Heretic. This one is written and directed by Scott Beck and Brian Woods. The synopsis for this one is listed on IMDb. 2 young religious women are drawn into a game of cat and mouse in the house of a strange man. So, we're back with EP569. I told you we would return. This movie I spoke about quite a lot at the end of the year. It's Heretic, and that is my number 3 pick. With the powerhouse performance by creepy Hugh Grant. Now, what I love about this is the general consensus from people who maybe don't necessarily pay that much attention to Hugh Grant is how much of a stretch this performance was for him, and that kind of baffles me. Hugh Grant is just playing Hugh Grant in this movie. It's just, you guys have just suddenly realised that Hugh Grant is kind of creepy. That kind of level of charm that he has, can be seen as quite creepy, which is very much what happens in this movie. Now, the reason this scored so high for me is I am a heathen by all kind of description put forward in a dictionary. It's kind of where I sit. I have no religion. I wouldn't even say that I'm agnostic. I'd like... I would say that I have no belief in any afterlife, no belief in anything beyond the ground that I'll eventually end up in, either as ash or in a box. And as a result of that, I am not burdened with maybe the same level of philosophical conversations about what exists beyond that other people are. I would say it's greatly freeing. I don't know if it is. It just is not something like my brain is wired to consider. And as a result, any movie that spends time questioning these things in a manner which I feel is maybe not the most... I mean, nothing in this movie is the most refreshing thing you've ever heard before, and it's not coming from a theological point of view which is going to break your brain, but at the same time, there's a lot of things you will have heard before levied at religion, kind of just laid out here in an interesting way, where our antagonist confronts our protagonists with very simple points as to why what they may have dedicated their life to in their pursuit of their religion might just actually be a lot of hogwash. Now, each to their own. It's not my place, nor should it be my place, to dissuade you from believing what you believe. But at the same time, this movie does a pretty good job. I thought the dialogue, of which this movie drives a lot of dialogue, is really well paced. It's really well put out. I think the set pieces as well, considering it is not the biggest locational set for a movie, is really well done. And what I would also say is the trailer for this movie, which I worried me give away too much, actually gave away very little of what the direction of the movie was and some of the twists and turns there within. I thought the pacing, even though the movie's just shy of 2 hours, is really well executed. I think, once again, the score and the lighting and the acting, the performances, specifically by our two protagonists, chef's kiss good as well. So I thought all that hang together. Now, I did see there was chatter online where people can't be happy that some people didn't like the ending, and whilst I do think the ending does take a right turn, Clyde, I didn't think it went off in a way which kind of destroyed any enjoyment of the movie. I kind of liked where it went, actually, overall. It's very on the nose. It's so on the nose you kind of want to punch yourself in the nose, but delivered in a really strong kind of out there manner. And if anything, that's where the true horror of the movie lies, is pretty much from the halfway mark on, and everything up to that point is probably what I would class as dread-inducing, as opposed to necessarily horror. It descends into out-and-out horror by the end of the movie. So yeah, Hugh Grant is absolutely phenomenal in this one. I don't think it's going to be... He's still an actor that lands a lot of really interesting roles. I can't see him away doing another horror movie anytime soon, but I think he could probably return and do a horror movie every 5 years if he wanted to, moving forward, and he would turn in a really, really interesting performance, just being himself, which, like I said before, I find him creepy, and I've found him creepy since 4 Weddings and a Funeral. And it's just great to see that everyone else has finally caught up with my overall opinions of him. I thought it was an absolutely brilliant movie, and once again, one of those refreshing reminders that A24 is a large tent. I know some people think they just make the weird movies that are, whatever it is, the argument is levied against them. And I actually disagree with that. I think if you look at the amount of horror movies they released in 2024, they were all very much a diverse bag of different titles that all had wildly different themes. Some were horror comedies, some were straight up horror, and some were abstract, like I Saw the TV Glow. So yeah, number 3 for me, a thoroughly enjoyable watch. It was Heretic, which means we are in on the penultimate title right now. Let's find out what made number 2. At number 2 is Longlegs. This is written and directed by Osgood Perkins. The synopsis of this movie, as listed on IMDb: in pursuit of a serial killer, an FBI agent uncovers a series of occult clues that she must solve to end his terrifying killing spree. So in at number 2, the movie that I would have said, had you asked me at the start of the year, what do you anticipate being your number 1 of the year, I would have probably said Longlegs. Now, there are a few reasons behind that. Osgood Perkins, as a director, for me, has not put a foot wrong. In fact, I think he's one of the more interesting filmmakers out there right now in the horror genre, specifically as in he tends to go very dark, he tends to go very cerebral, and his visual style is absolutely immaculate. He pays homage to the old whilst bringing in the new. And this is him doing a kind of a serial killer story, a kind of Silence of the Lambs, if you will. I'm going to be all about that because it's hitting all the sweet spots for me. Neon were behind the distribution of this movie. Neon are having an incredible time just now, releasing just brilliant movies. As you will see, they kind of dominated my my top spot here by... and probably will next year as well. By next year, I mean this year. They've got a couple of heavy hitters coming out this year as well. What they did really well in this movie, I mean, just in general, is they gave away a ton of clues and a ton of information in the trailers, which actually didn't end up stacking up to anything when you came to watch this movie. This movie was not the movie I thought I was getting, and wonderfully so. Mika Monroe is kind of great as our Jodie Foster, Clarice Starling-esque character in this movie, kind of tracking down and trying to hunt and capture Nicolas Cage, the occult satanic serial killer in this movie. Now, Nicolas Cage, we could do hours and hours and hours about how amazing Nicolas Cage is and how he continues to just be so out there on the point of parody. It's unbelievable, but that somehow works for him as an actor. His killer in this movie is fucking terrifying. It's such a powerful performance and it works so well. It's underpinned in the movie by cinematography that has a real grain, a kind of almost like a nicotine film over it, like a public office from the 70s. She's like a really kind of tangible, greasy film that exists pretty much all over this. And the world feels lived in. This movie, I think, is set in the 90s, if memory serves. The only reason I say that is I want to say that either Bush or Clinton is on a picture in one of the scenes in the FBI office. And this kind of cat and mouse game breaks out basically to stop Nicolas Cage's killer before he kills again. It is incredibly shot. Like I mentioned before, the score is fingers on a chalkboard, like just fingernails scraping, jarring at times, very unsettling. And this movie it has almost kind of a Lynch quality about it, a kind of David Lynch quality of you're watching something relatively banal, but you feel like your skin is on fire with fire ants. You're just like crawling all over. Very, very, very bizarre, very obtuse, very off to the side. I thought this movie was absolutely brilliant. I've seen it once since, and I preferred it on the second watch. And I'm sure that on my third watch, I'm going to love it even more. Osgood Perkins has The Monkey coming out this year based on the Stephen King short story. I think that will also be amazing. I think Neon is releasing that as well, which is why I mentioned Neon's going to have a good year this year. It's out, within a month? So we went a good couple of years since Gretel and Hansel to get to Longlegs, and now we'll have The Monkey pretty much on our doorstep any minute. So he's a phenomenal talent as a director, and this movie just kind of, to me, this was the movie where I saw a lot of people going, who is this Osgood Perkins? And I was like, oh yeah, we're gonna have people finally going back and checking out that Black Coat's Daughter movie, which is wonderful. But like me, the other movies are the Pretty Things and the Gretel and Hansel movie, just two phenomenal titles as well that people will finally check out off the back of the success. And hopefully, like, The Monkey looks like it's going to do really well as well. He's just going to keep getting good budgets, and hopefully we'll just keep going off and doing his thing, because that's all I want. So yeah, number 2 for me was, of course, a little bit of Longlegs, which means you should probably work out what my number 1 is. And I'll be honest with you, this might be the first year in, well, maybe half a decade where I'm actually lining up with the majority of the internet, and apparently the Oscars as well, certainly the Golden Globes. It's not often that we all come together, but we are right now, as you find out what my number 1 was. At number 1 is The Substance. This is directed by Coralie Fargate, and she also wrote the movie as well. The synopsis of this movie, as listed on IMDb, is a fading celebrity takes a black market drug, a cell-replicating substance that temporarily creates a younger, better version of herself. So here we are at number 1, and yeah, The Substance. Like I say, I think I just, first year, and I don't know how long, that I just saw top 10 lists awash with The Substance at number 1, and was like, you know, every now and again we all do come together, and we all agree on things. And yeah, this is the best horror movie of the year. Is it the most original? By no stretch of the imagination could I say it is. Could I liken it to other body horror movies? Society? Yes, I could. However, Society came out, what? At this stage, we're talking about, what, over 30 years ago since Society came out. So, like, I think enough time has gone that we can do an update or retelling of that sort of story, which deals specifically with instead of classism in this one, it's how Hollywood treats its aging stars or starlets. Or I would go one step further, just how we deal with unrealistic body dysmorphia and ageism in society, and put right under the microscope in a way which is wonderfully darkly comedic, very pointed, and wonderfully executed. Now, this director had a movie from a couple of years ago, I think it was about five years ago, called Revenge, which I absolutely adored when it came out. It was just full of big old, like, bright neon colours, you know, very vibrant cinematography, and at its core it was just a good old-fashioned revenge movie. And this one here, and I remember saying at the time, just throw all the money at this director and it'll be interesting where it goes. I don't think The Substance had all the money, but it does have Demi Moore in it, and she is absolutely phenomenal. In fact, once again, the casting across the board in this one is kind of amazing. It's wonderfully dark and it's pointedly funny. I've already mentioned that, but I found myself giggling while watching this movie in certain points, and the last 25 minutes is utterly fucking insane. Once again, not insane that I've never seen this before. I swear the internet can be a place that I just want to, like, throw myself off a bridge when I read comments about people moaning that someone is happy having seen another movie. Yes, that's the world we live in, where that's important. Yes, it owes a lot to the movies of Brian Yuzna and David Cronenberg. Stuart Gordon, for sure, is heavily influenced by that. But I actually think there's a kind of a touch in the script and delivery that those directors don't have. Maybe Cronenberg to an extent, but I don't think Stuart Gordon or Brian Yuzna have movies where the scripts themselves are handled in the way that this is. So if you disagree with that, I don't care. It's well paced. It's excellently executed. It has the high concept social commentary that I enjoy. It has all the blood and guts and nastiness and goriness and absurdity that the gorehounds love. Is well paced. Is wonderfully macabre. Pointedly funny, which I will use as my third time because it really is, like, it gets under your ribs to make you laugh. And delivered in this just incredible way. It's won awards already. It's up for Oscars. Demi Moore won a Golden Globe for Best Actress. She's up for an Oscar. I think she'll win the Oscar. I think she's been passed a few times over in the past, and they tend to go out their way to make sure it secures it. Horror is very well represented in the Oscars this year. Not that we care about this sort of thing, but I think she's in with a shout. I think she genuinely is in with a shout, and rightly so. She bears a lot, and when I mean she bears a lot, I saw a lot of Demi Moore that I wasn't expecting, and she does it in a way where she fully commits to the role. There's a version of this movie that could exist where she wants to be in it but not committed to it, and you get a lesser performance, and she threw herself entirely into the part. The less you know about the direction of travel of the movie, the more enjoyment you will have in it, but I will say it's going to be one of those movies that I think come the end of the decade, people are going to be universally still lavishing praise on it within the genre. I think its cross appeal is because it managed to do that rare thing of tapping into all the likes of all our little subgenres and all our little cliques of fandom. It manages to weave a thread right through for entertainment purposes. So yeah, number one for me, and I knew as soon as it finished, I was like that, yeah, this is the best one, is The Substance. That's where I'm going with that. Which means my final five countdown starts off with, at number 5, I Saw the TV Glow. At number 4, we have Exhuma. At number 3, we have Heretic. At number 2, we have Longlegs. And at number 1, The Substance. So there you go. That has us reached the end of this countdown here. Now, as always, I'm keen to hear from you. So if you are out there and you have went through all my 20 and noticed there's a gap there for a movie that you thought I would have talked about, or maybe I haven't seen, by all means post it in the comments below. How did these movies score for you? Let me know. Did they even make the top 10? Did I get them the wrong way around? Is Longlegs your favourite horror movie of the year? Would you never be caught dead with having Heretic in your top 5? Let me know. Comment section below. Ladies and gents, if it's on YouTube, like and subscribe this video please, and ding the bell, and that way you will always get notified when I've dropped brand new content, of which there will be quite a lot coming in 2025. If you're checking us out on Spotify or the Anchor apps where you can do the video podcast, you can subscribe to those feeds, and I believe you can also post questions or leave feedback or comments there as well, so please do that. And lastly, if you're checking out the audio version of this on any of the podcatchers available to you out there, please hit subscribe, and that way you get access to the almost 1400 episodes of Podcast Under the Stairs on that RSS feed, as well as all future content as well. And that, ladies and gents, is that. The Podcast Under the Stairs will return in our next video discussing Steven Soderbergh's Presence. But until then, wherever you are, what the time zone is, and whatever you're up to in this big bad world of ours, please take care of yourselves out there. This is Duncan McLeish broadcasting live from Under the Stairs, and I am signing off.